This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. And welcome to a fun video I wanted to do talking about 5 fictional locations I would love to visit and 5 I would never want to visit. This is inspired since I'll be at Galaxy's Edge this week, and since I'll be, somewhere in the Star Wars universe, I want to think about places I would really want to go that's fictional and places I would never ever want to visit in my life and would probably go a very good way to avoid going to these places. So I'll go by looking at my number 5s, then 4s, and then you get the point. So let's start off with number 5 for places I would never want to visit. There's also going to be a few things where I'll mention places similar to it. There'll be sort of honorable mentions, but there are places that honestly I really wouldn't want to go either, but or would want to go, depending on the thing. It'll just depend on it, and I do have a few rules. The first is I can't choose any apocalyptic setting because that's obviously gonna make it, an very easy choice and could just be 5 apocalyptic ones. The same for utopias, so anywhere where everything is completely perfect. I'm also going to avoid since obviously those would be really easy to just get 5 of those locations. Although those 5 utopias are going to be a lot harder to find than 5 apocalypses. Going to other stuff, I'm also not going to consider places that, mainly for the bad ones, that have had either one like really bad day or a bad section for a small portion of history. And also, I'm not going to consider any real world locations unless there's a significant enough change to it in that universe where it makes it different than the actual location. So, for example, in let's just say like Transformers, they go and destroy, I believe they destroy Chicago with the third one. That's not going to remove it from my list or really change anything for it. It wouldn't qualify since that's only like one event, but if you go and take a look at something that will make it on the list, which is New York from the Marvel Universe, I won't say which one it is on. You'll just see when you get there. With all the superhero activity there and a lot of superhero doing base there, I'd say it's significant enough for me to be able to consider it. So those are the rules and the exceptions and stuff. So as long as it falls into those worlds or cities or really anything will be fine. The final exception for this is no places that are just straight up, bad guy layers or evil places. So places like Mordor and, just other places like that are also automatically removed from this because that's also too easy to list places like that. And starting at number 5 for places I would never want to visit, we have Dathomir. And it's mainly to the dangers on the planet, but also to the fact that I am a man and it is a very woman dominated planet. I would not be welcome there, and the Night Sisters are some people you just don't want to mess with. Yes, there is the brief time where they really aren't in control of the planet, but it looks like, at least in canon, that's only from the time of the Massacre in the Clone Wars to Ahsoka, and if we take a look at Legends, it's basically never given up by the Night Sisters. So yeah, I would never want to be visiting Dathomir, and a similar place is Themyscira from DC, which I bet you're wondering why I would say that, but it's because in certain versions of it, they'll just kill any man that steps on the island. So yeah, that's definitely a place I want to stop by. But with how inconsistent that is, felt like that didn't qualify it for the list. I did want to mention it, but I honestly think that Dathomir is just so much worse because not only do you get the extreme hatred of men from the locals, but you also have way more dangerous stuff like rancors, a bunch of dangerous predators there, and so much more. So yeah, that's just a place I don't want to visit. Going to number five for places I do want to visit, it's the world of Naboo. And honestly, I think Naboo would be just really nice to go to because it's just a really beautiful planet. Well, I would love to visit the city of Theed and maybe even go to the area where Anakin and Padme hid out in the Lake Country. Probably wouldn't want to stop by the swamps, but who knows, I might. Maybe even if I get to see a Gungan city, that'd be just a cool thing to do. But yeah, I think Naboo would just be a really nice planet overall to visit. It is, it's nothing extreme, but I think that of everywhere, I think it would be a really nice place to go because it's a really beautiful planet and it's a really cool place. I wouldn't mind too much where I went, but it's really nice to go and just be in those different locations. At number four of places I would never want to visit is New York from the Marvel Universe. And don't get me wrong, I am not saying this to be offensive to anyone in New York. New York City is one of the places that I really want to visit in the real world, but I would not want to go anywhere near the Marvel Universe version of New York because of how many superheroes are active there. I think it's somewhere between like 70 to 80% of the Marvel Universe is either fully operational or at least partially operational in New York City. So that means you're going to be, no matter where you go, running into supervillains, anywhere from more minor joke characters to pretty big serious ones. And the chance of an alien invasion or something happening there is relatively high, and it is pretty destructive. But yeah, I think just with all the threats in there, and the fact that even though there's a lot of superheroes, there's also going to have to be a lot of supervillains to fight them. It's a pretty bad place to live, and honestly, I don't know why like people in the Marvel New York would live there because, although I would love to visit the real New York, as I said, I would not want to go anywhere near this place because when you have a chance of running into basically Spider-Man's entire rogues gallery, a good amount of the was it the Fantastic Four, everyone that fights Daredevil, and that's just starting off. There could be also chances of alien invasions, and who else knows what. It's just a really dangerous place to be, and I would not want to go near that version of New York. One last time, I am not saying anything about the real New York. I am only talking about the fictional version where there's like 1,000 superheroes there, and that makes it extremely dangerous. And going to number four of places I would love to visit, we have Metropolis, and this is from DC. And although there is the chance of an alien invasion, it is relatively rare. Although you could say that also for New York, it is definitely not as bad when you have Superman there, who is definitely willing to put his life on the line and is actually capable of being, anywhere where there's extreme danger. Seeing Superman would be cool, and I think that although there would be some dangers, I feel that it's not going to be as extreme as other places because you have Superman there, and I would definitely trust my life in the hands of Superman if anything really does bad happen, but there's really, not too much. You just have to, hope that the rare alien invasion doesn't happen there because Superman is generally fighting off more, localized threats where threats like Lex Luthor and different, more small-time supervillains will be attacking, and although Superman does have a decently big rogues gallery, as long as you don't show up at a time where Darkseid, Brainiac, or Doomsday want to go and fight Superman, I think you should be fine, and it's generally a pretty safe place. And there's some cool places you can see. You can, of course, see the Daily Planet. Depending on the continuity, you might be able to see the Hall of Justice. And it's just, honestly, I think a really cool place. And although there is some risk, which is why it's lower on the list, I definitely would still love to see it. And I think that the benefit of just Superman being there and being able to, really help you if you are in any serious danger is a pretty big benefit. Going to number three of places I would never, ever, 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 ever want to visit, and this is, of course, the highest one on Earth because the other ones are off the planet. But this is Gotham City, and I would not want to visit Gotham City if I had to go. I'd rather go to, Metropolis, or I'd go the long way around to avoid Gotham City because the crime rate is extremely high. There are way too many supervillains in here, and unlike New York, where you at least have the benefit of there being a good amount of superheroes, you really just have Batman and whatever allies he has in the city at the time. So yeah, I would just want to avoid Gotham City no matter what. Best thing you're going to get from me is maybe seeing the bat signal when you're in Metropolis, because I am not going anywhere near Gotham City. It is just such a dangerous place, way too much crime, and it is basically, lawless there. Like, the cops are basically useless, and literally the only reason that this has made it to number three and not number one is because Batman is there and there's at least some good cops there. But if those two factors were removed, this place should probably just be like nuked like Ra's al Ghul wanted in Batman Begins because this place is just way too dangerous to be, and I have no idea how anyone willingly lives there that is not a criminal because of how dangerous this place is. But yeah, let's just go on to number three for the places I would love to visit, and that is Lothlorien. And this was honestly a kind of a three-way tie kind of between Rivendell, the Shire, and Lothlorien, but when I started thinking about it, of the descriptions Tolkien gave, Lothlorien would definitely be the best, and although I would love to go to the other two, I think that they are just too similar in terms of just being kind of a beautiful, natural place from Middle Earth, and of all of them, I think Lothlorien would be the best. That is, as long as it is, before the elves leave, which is basically its entire history, because once it's abandoned, it is really not anything. Then, sure, you could say the Shire would be the next point on it, but going to Lothlorien, especially just during its height, I think would be a great place to go to. The elves there aren't bad people, and although there are the fears around them in Middle Earth, I know, they're not terrible people and would just love to just visit there, and I think it would just be an incredible place to see. It is, of course, not a secret location, so somewhere like Gondolin would, although it'd be awesome to see, you really wouldn't be able to leave there. So, yeah, honestly, it's a secure place. Definitely the safest of all the places that really will be mentioned at all, and really hasn't been invaded at all, and the only attempts were very easily fought back. But yeah, honestly, it'd be a great place to visit. Really beautiful, and honestly is probably the safest place of all these, although I don't mind a little bit of extra danger to go to the next two locations. But before we go and talk about that, let's go take a look at the next place that I truly would not want to go to, and that's just the entirety of hut space. And as I was mentioning with Gotham, the only reason that is not at number one is because there's at least some protection there, but in hut space, it's just completely ruled by criminals. It is really anything goes there and is just incredibly dangerous. And the main reason people get stuck there is because the huts are just so controlling, and it is pretty hard to get out. You have to save up credits and try to move towards a world that may just be even worse. So sometimes people are just stuck there. But yeah, honestly, there's nowhere I'd want to go in hut space because you're either going to be stuck in the middle of nowhere, like on Tatooine, or in the middle of controlled, organized crime syndicates and bases. If you go to somewhere like Nel Hutta or Nar Shaddaa, there's really nowhere safe there, and it's just really bad place to go all around unless you're looking to be in hiding. Then I guess it's fine, but it's just somewhere you do not want to be at all. But it's nowhere as bad as number one. And let's go to number two for places I would love to go to before I go and take a look at somewhere I would not want to. To quote the Grinch, touch with a 29.5 foot pole. Or no, I could think which song, but let's go look at number two for now. Of the places that I would love to go to, and that is the city of Minas Tirith. And of everyone on Middle Earth, I honestly want to visit this place the most. This city is just an impressive fortress, but also is a great city. It would be really great to go there, and I'm assuming I probably, as a tourist, wouldn't be able to go too high up into the levels. Maybe just the first three, but ideally I'd be able to go all the way to the top and see the White Tree of Gondor, which would be incredible, but I don't think that'd be likely. But this city would be really impressive to see, and honestly, just looks really cool. I would just love to visit. I think that would be just such a cool place to go to. It has such great history to it, and even though you're pretty close to Mordor, you're at least still secure, and the city never is taken, so you do have the safety of that. And as long as you're there, really outside the two times where Sauron is extremely operational, which would be right after its founding and during the War of the Ring, you're going to be relatively safe there. There are some other conflicts, but nothing that's going to be extremely bad. And yeah, honestly, I would love to go, of course, after Aragorn claims the kingship, but going before would still be good, and who really knows, but how far you could go up. But honestly, I'd love to visit there still. And going to number one, a place I would never ever want to visit and never be really close to is the lower levels of Coruscant, especially in the Legends continuity because it gets way worse. This place is completely filled with crime. It's basically pointless to call the cops because no one really cares, and the lower you go, the worse things get, where it just gets to some pretty dark and disturbing stuff going down, and that's just talking about it before things get really bad, and things get way worse after the occupation of the Yuzhan Vong, which makes things a billion times worse to a place that was already extremely bad to go, and just the default of the lower levels is already number one, but it just soars to unbelievable heights to how bad it is after the Vong War, and it seems that it's permanently stuck like this, where they basically decided we're not going to bother with the lower levels and just let everything the Vong left be there. So there's a bunch of deadly plants and different things that the Vong unleashed when they conquered the planet. It is somewhere where you do not want to be, and it's just made even worse after Abeloth shows up and just takes things from like a million to like a trillion in how bad things could be, and like just a bunch of volcanoes, and I think it was said like literally called death clouds. So yeah, I would not want to be in those lower levels. It is just completely crazy, and especially if you go farther into Legends timeline, I have no idea how anyone is able to be alive down there. Like, there's people that are, stuck down there because they can't get up because there's nowhere else for them to go. But because the upper levels won't let them up there, and they can't really find a way off world because they don't have any money. But there is honestly, I have no idea how anyone is still alive there in the, especially post Fate of the Jedi timeline of Star Wars, because it is really terrible down there. Like, I would not want to go there at all. But number one is going to be kind of surprising for you, especially if we talk about how bad the lower levels are, because at number one, I have the upper levels of Coruscant, and compared to the lower levels, which I just described how terrible they were, the upper levels are completely beautiful. They're extremely safe, and as long as you're there during a time that is not the Vong invasion, it is the most secure and safe place in the galaxy. It's where all the one percenters are, and it is where everyone wants to keep safe. Even when it's being taken over, it's going to be still relatively safe there. And really, there's only like, besides the Vong occupation, a few times you don't want to be there, mainly during the Sith invasion, during the Old Republic, and during the just few days where there's battles during the Galactic Civil War, and a few other times. But genuinely, I would love to go to Coruscant. I would love to see the Jedi Temple, even just see the Senate building, the Galactic Museum, and be able to just see this amazing city-wide planet. And that would probably be just one of the coolest places to visit, and is personally my number one. And yeah, I would just love to go there. I'm just not stepping anywhere that's close to the lower levels. Lowest I might go is Dex's Diner if it's open during that short time period, but I'm not going any lower because, especially if it's in the Legends timeline and it's after Fate of the Jedi, that place is just, as I mentioned before, a complete death trap. But honestly, I want to know what you think. What's five places you would love to visit and five places you would never ever want to go to? So please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.